Right then, is that okay? Just make sure the board doesn't have to play.
I'll take that. I need it.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
Thank you so much for coming and attending this Standing Up to Hate talk and discussion panel hosted by the Virginia Festival of the Book. I am Michael Chuck, the editor of this book, and I'm also going to be serving as moderator during our time together. And at this point, I want to thank Virginia Festival of the Book and the sponsors and contributors that make this event possible. So thank you so much. Also want to thank the gracious host of Jefferson School African American Heritage Center to allow us to use this beautiful space for our conversation. A little bit of housekeeping matters. You should have received an evaluation form as you come into the room, so please take time to fill it out. And then there should be also a handout that you were given too that has our pictures and panelists and so forth. Yeah, before I start, I want to ask the audience, how many of you were also in Charlottesville on August 12th, really in the downtown area during the route? Yes. Thank you. We're here on this panel, right? But you have your own experience. You have played your part. And so it just so happens that like we're here, you could write a book about this too. But it just so happens that we have had the opportunity to write the book, but I want to acknowledge your role and your continuing presence and work in this community. So thank you, thank you. I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce ourselves. Before we do that, I also want to acknowledge two panelists who are not able to be here today. The first one is Rabbi Tom Bithurst, Rabbi of Congregation Beth Israel. He just had hips replacement surgery, so you can understand that. And then Elizabeth Shalou, member of the Charlottesville Friends meeting, came down sick today, and so is not able to come. So I'm Michael Chuck. I have been here in the Charlottesville area since 1993, and I was actually at First United Methodist Church the whole day on August 12th, coordinating and helping with communications with those who are on the streets, with media, with the hospital, and so forth. And was formerly the minister at University Baptist Church here in Charlottesville.
My name is Alvin Edwards. I'm pastor of Mount Zion First African Baptist Church. In July of this year, Lord willing, I'll be there 43 years, and I started when I was 12. In all honesty, no, I came in '81. I was 29 years old when I started at Mount Zion, and we used to be on the corner of Ridge and Main, and we built new and moved to First and Elliott Avenue. We've been there now 20 years, and so I'm thankful to be here. I've been involved in this community since I've been here, and I don't like to talk a lot about what I do. I'm grateful to God for my family, married, 4 children, 3 foster children. I have a total of 12 biological grandchildren and 4 more grands by marriage. I have a total of 16 grandchildren. And what else?
I think that's more than enough,
Okay,
actually.
Good morning. I think it's still morning.
Yeah, you need to get closer to the microphone.
I'm Brenda Brown Grooms. I co-pastor New Beginnings Christian Community with Dr. Elizabeth Emery, who's founding pastor. I'm a native of Charlottesville, Virginia, and this, in fact, was my elementary school. And I did my first play on this stage.
Good morning. My name is Anne Marie Smith. I'm a longtime member of the Insight Meditation Community of Charlottesville, former board member there. I'm also a formal student of Sensei Koshin Paley Ellison at the New York Zen Center for Contemplative Care, where I took vows in 2016. I work in town at a local hospital as a chaplain. Along with my family, I've lived in Charlottesville for 19 years, which is the longest I've ever lived anywhere, and it feels like raising kids in a place makes it feel like home, so I think of Charlottesville as home now. It's good to be here with you today.
Yeah, thanks. So this book is a collective effort. So there are 21 contributors to this book, and if you can, 2 Methodist, 2 Cooperative Baptist, 2 American Baptist, 1 National Baptist Convention, USA United, 1 Mennonite, 2 Presbyterians, 2 Episcopal, 2 Quakers, 1 Sufi, 2 Jewish, 3 Buddhists, and 1 Unitarian. So, yes. And so I'm really glad that we, at least, it's not just me on the stage, but at least several of the authors here too, right? And so I'm going to ask us to just say, like, in 2 sentences or 3, how would you summarize the gist of your chapter in the book? So like, I'll start. You know, it was a reflection of my experience at First United Methodist Church on August 12th, but it was also kind of a meditation on identity and belonging as an Asian American, not black nor white, and how my role fit in all of this. And I also observed the dynamics of all these different people coming together here downtown on August 12th. So that would be my summary.
My summary would be that I basically kind of wrote the introduction about how we began as the Charlottesville Clergy Collective. And we'll get off into that more and more as we probably talk this morning. But that's kind of on that day I was between UVA and First United Methodist Church. I was scheduled to speak up at UVA for a group, and then after they canceled, I come downtown and I saw the mailing, and so we just kind of rode around, and then we hung out at First United Methodist.
I don't run very well, so I was at First United Methodist. Sarah Kelly and I were the prayer warriors. We led songs and prayers. People came in every now and then to catch their breaths, and we were there when what was it they sprayed? Pepper spray.
Pepper spray.
The rabbis were down in the front leading songs, and the pepper spray wafted up into the building, and we went, oh, they're here. My chapter come to what was the stew that I've been stewing ever since I was born in this town kind of came together in a particular way in my chapter. The earliest I can remember, I asked God who God meant me to be, because the society said I wasn't anybody and wasn't ever going to be anybody. But I experienced my call at the age of 3, and I wrestled with God. I said, I'm a little girl, and I won't be able to do that because I've never seen a woman do that. And I decided at 8 that I was going to be a lawyer and I could help black and poor people somewhere or another. I thought it would help me not to get dementia when I was old. And where I got it from, I was real convinced that that's what it would be. But all the questions I've asked myself since I became conscious kind of came together in that chapter. What it means to be African American female in this country that avows one thing but actually lives another.
On August 12th, I started the day, as many people in the Clergy Collective and a group called Congregate, at a prayer service. And after that, Congregate and the Clergy Collective folks went in slightly different directions. With Congregate, I was down outside of the park and in the streets of Charlottesville throughout the day, including in the aftermath of the car crash that killed Heather Heyer and hurt many other people. My hope in my chapter is to convey, I guess, really 2 things. Kind of what it was like to wake up to my whiteness in a very visceral way in a specific space and time. That was August 12th, but also to connect that with the larger American history, like all in one moment, all these things colliding. And also just to share my experience. Felt the only way I could be there was to be very grounded in my Buddhist practice and to just share a bit with folks that might not be familiar with that, what that looked like for me, including sharing some Buddhist teachings and my expression of them.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we try to do is to kind of share our own experience, but also our own learning, and also the mistakes that we've made. And that's why, the subtitle to the book is The Charlottesville Clergy Collective and the Lessons from August 12th, 2017. And maybe I'll start from Anne and maybe work our way back, right? What lesson you are still carrying with you? And it could be something that you might want to read in the chapter of your book, right? That kind of encapsulates that.
Sure. I'm gonna maybe not read it, but try to paraphrase if that's okay. I guess one of the big lessons for me was the understanding in a very real way of what it means to be able to walk back and cross over a line as a white man. I understood in a way I probably didn't in the morning that I had stepped over a line. It was a pretty dangerous line. I thought probably the worst case scenario that day was going to be that I would get arrested. But very quickly, early in the morning, I realized that might have been a really great scenario, and that the potential for people to die was very real. There was a lot of weapons and firepower, and there was a lot of anger and energy. And I had this experience, which will stay with me forever, of after the car crash, of running into a deacon who I'd gotten to know over that summer and before, who was really upset after the car accident, and talking to him about it being okay to take a break, to take a Sabbath, to borrow from our Abrahamic brothers and sisters. And he said to me that he was a black man in Charlottesville, Virginia. And that because of that, he could never take a break from them. That really is the lesson that will stay with me forever. And then slightly after that, my husband called and asked if I would come home because my 11-year-old son had been watching with him what was unfolding on CNN, like a mile from our house. And I said yes, and he got me, and things were kind of calming down then. And I remember very distinctly getting in the car with them and realizing that as we drove away that if we got pulled over, if something happened, like I would be very protected by my skin color in the car, my son and my husband, that I had then just stepped back over that line. And I think I just will never unlearn that line, and the privilege of being able to step back and forth over it, and really the imperative to intentionally step over it, to care for our fellow human beings. We don't have that luxury.
I love these people. I will read a little of the end of my chapter. White nationalists have worked hard to sign. Oh, sure. I can take this one. White nationalists have worked hard to assign blame for the many protests following George Floyd's murder to Antifa and to Black Lives Matter proponents. They did so after August 12, 2017 in Charlottesville, Virginia. They have done the same following the domestic terrorism of January 6, 2021. The insistence of Trump supporters that he won the presidential race, 146 Republican House members who protested the formal certification of the electoral votes and the peaceful transfer of power, and the Senate's waffling on the absolute necessity to hold Trump accountable for insurrection, lead us right back to the mistaken handling of the secessionist states after the Civil War. The Confederate flag and the noose hanging in the Capitol's base on January 6th illustrate this point so clearly. There is no reconciliation without repentance. Those who hold to the great lie of this country are fighting hard to cover themselves once more and live on with the benefits the lie was constructed to preserve for themselves. However, beginning at the church, which must throw off the idolatry of white supremacy, the citizens of this country must stop being afraid and open our hearts to brother and sisterhood. We must recognize that the one-drop rule has already destroyed the construct of race in this country. We must recognize that true worship of God, however one calls God, cannot live among idol worshipers who refuse to see that we are all God's children. We must recognize that the bargain with the devil that the founders shaped into what they never actually meant to function as the home of the free and the land of the brave is a lie that bankrupts the future. It is time for a new theology, or perhaps another, better, fuller interpretation of the old. We can change the world if we change the metaphors. What did God really say? This is the question the serpent asked Eve in the Garden of Eden, which results in the broken relationship between God and humanity. It is the question we must ask today before the white evangelical church can let go of its idolatry. One thing that I have learned again, and I needed to, is not to despair. It's hard being African American or anybody who's different in this society, and I can't put it down. And sometimes I come close to despair, but if I come to despair and fall over that chasm, I can't get back. And so, seeing brothers and sisters, men and women, children, everybody in this town taking some part in holding back the night in 2017 has given me great hope.
The lesson I would say I learned is that people do care. And one of the ways that they hear it is that the Charlottesville Clergy Collective came together and formally organized, and then the people were willing to stand up to the hate that others were trying to perpetrate. That was encouraging to me and hope. It gave me a sense of hope. Because I've been in Charlottesville all those years, and one of the things that concerned me the most was that it's hard to bring religious institutions together, because we may disagree theologically, but we can come together on some issues. And one of the things I used to challenge, I still tell this everywhere I go, what would this community look like if every child in our school systems, Charlottesville and Albemarle County, was on grade reading level? I just wonder what difference would that make. And if the religious institutions did it, I asked a question, and this is what brought us together after Mother Emanuel's on page 8. If what happened at Mother Emanuel had happened at Mount Zion First African Baptist Church, I asked them all, how many do you think I would have called you? The answer was, none of you. And they started asking for why. One, I don't know you. Two, this is the first time I've seen you, and I've been here a number of years. I'll be 73 in October, Lord willing. And so I've been here for a while, and I've seen a lot, but I've never seen churches come together, or either religious institutions come together, but they did come together for August 12th. And we came together too when they had the Ku Klux Klan show up too. We showed up in big numbers for that as well. And so I'm grateful for the Charlottesville Clergy Collective and for our coming together. It's one of the things that I enjoy doing, is bringing people together across diverse lines.
Thank you. So before I share mine, I'd like to take a moderator's privilege and just share a couple of readings from Rabbi Tom and also Elizabeth Shalou, because they are not here. And so I'm going to apologize to them right now that they may not have chosen the same passage, but those passages really tugged at my heart. Because Rabbi Tom, his family suffered under the Nazi regime, and his family members were also killed during the Holocaust, right? And so I cannot even imagine the kind of trauma that he was also experiencing. And yet this is what, and then there were also kind of stories floating around about how the Jewish congregation were fearful and so forth and so on. And so this paragraph really tugged at my heart and spoke to me. He writes, this is Rabbi Tom Goodhurst. I want to clarify one part of our story that has received a lot of attention, an image that has been repeated over and over again, and that seems to sum up people's understanding of what our community experienced that day. It is true that when we left the synagogue following our prayers, we left in small groups through the back door, and that has often been interpreted as a sign of fear or panic on the part of our congregation. Quite the opposite. By the time services were over, the street in front of the synagogue were swarming with National Guardsmen, state police, hundreds of people. Our side door was the quickest way to get to the park, to join the counter demonstration, or to go down the street to First United Methodist Church, where the Clergy Collective had planned to gather on the front steps for singing and protest overlooking Market Street Park. We had moved the normal time of our service up by 1 hour in order to enable people to be with us at prayer and also to take their places on the streets as part of the counter-protest to the alt-right rally. We did leave the building in small groups as a matter of caution. Caution that turned out to be well-founded. I am proud of the resilience and courage of so many in our congregation who showed up on both July 8 and August 12 to worship together, who remained on the streets in opposition to the KKK and the neo-Nazis, and who continue to be actively engaged in the struggle against white supremacy. Thank God for Rabbi Tom and Congregation Dentistry. And then for Elizabeth Shalou, one of the things, we call ourselves the Charlottesville Clergy Collective, right? But there are certain faith traditions that do not have clergy nor recognize clergy. Like, whoops, on our part. And Elizabeth taught us, was one of several traditions that taught us that. And so one of their challenges was like, how do we show, we don't have clergy garb or, markers to tell us like what side we were on, right? And so through their creativity, they printed out t-shirts like, Quakers or Charlottesville Friends Meeting. And so they were seen and known throughout town because of their blue t-shirts. And then Elizabeth encountered Alan Jacobs, a black photojournalist from Charlotte, North Carolina. And as they had a conversation, right? She asked him, why were you here and so forth. This is what Alvin Jacobs had to say. In other places Alvin had been, there were always clearly two sides. And you can tell who was on which side, such as the anti-police brutality protesters versus the police. He told me that as a black man, he had been more afraid for his life in Charlottesville than anywhere else because of the chaos and complete lack of safety. He had witnessed 6 different altercations take place, including the vicious beating of a 20-year-old black man by white supremacists in a parking garage. And he had seen the police just watching and not intervening. But he also told me that he had never seen white people so in it as they were that day. It was largely white people fighting white people over white supremacy. That to me was such a stirring recollection and a reminder for those of us who are not black that we have our own unique roles to play. And thank God for those of you and others who were there in body, in spirit, risking your lives as a counter-witness, right? And so for me, one of the lessons that I'll always carry on with me is just this sense of, okay, I'm not white, I'm not black, so what is my role, right? And then seeing all the various kind of different ways society maybe divides us or labels us in terms of our race, our ethnicity, our gender identity, whatever it may be, our religion. And yet we came together, not perfectly, we had our differences and there were hurt feelings, but yet we came together in a really messy way and we showed up. And thank God for people like Alvin and Brenda and others who had the patience with me and so many others who are still learning so many things that I personally have not witnessed, right? You talk about the white privilege. I'll talk about my Asian privilege, or frankly, my Asian ignorance. And so it is a continuing journey of learning for me that I will always carry with me. And I thank these folks and so many others for that.
Well, let me also put a plug in for you. When I was chairman of the Clergy Collective, Mike was so close to me that he almost could start thinking for me.
That was scary.
But a lot that happened at the Clergy Collective he was he took care of it. This book, he got the committee together and they worked on it. I remember when I first brought the idea up, it came up, people started submitting things, Michael became the editor. I even started to take something he wrote for myself, and he wouldn't let me, so. but I didn't know at the time he had written it, but the thing is that I do want to thank him publicly for his commitment to make this become
I know, yeah. And I will also say that, this is certainly, thank you so much, right? Thank you so much, but it was not a solo effort. Liz Emery, David Garth served on this kind of editorial team, even though my name is here, they also played a big part. And without the contributions of 21 different people coming together and sharing their experiences, their sermons, their reflections, their continued learning, this book would not have been made possible. And I think, I like to hope that that kind of model can serve as something that our whole community can bring our own unique giftedness, our connections, our experiences, right? And put it together. And yes, it's going to be messy, and it's going to be hard, and there will be misunderstandings. But hopefully, that is part of the journey in order for beloved community to take place. Right, so thank you.
We fear messiness. We fear messiness as human beings, but newsflash, we are messy beings. We're really, really messy and a bit insane, so how would we not be messy? One wonderful thing that I noted as a result of all of this happening is that the community of Charlottesville said to the religious leaders, what are you going to do? We think it is your job to shape this platform and lead us to carry it out. And if you don't show up, we're not going to show up. Talk about a comeuppance. In an age that we consider to be secular, people still and yet know that the role of religious leaders is to lead morally, lead spiritually, and you all called us to task, and I'm grateful you did.
Can I say along that line, what started me on this journey with the Clergy Collective was a lady, elderly Caucasian lady at our church at a prayer service. And she says to me, she says, well, Reverend, she said, prayer is good, but what else are you going to do? She was 80-some years old, and she challenged me like that. And so I'm grateful for what we've made so far.
I want to acknowledge that it is 11:33. We want to leave some room for questions and so forth. So kind of begin to think about your questions and all of that, also the evaluation. But wonder if there's any kind of final word from any of you all.
I guess my final word would be that I was personally really surprised at what I would call like an inner imperative to show up that day. One of the things I reflected on too was, is there anything I would have done differently? And when I thought about that, the answer is no. I think if it happened again tomorrow, I would do the exact same thing. And I think it was because, for whatever reason, I could hone in on that inner imperative, which sometimes didn't make sense to the people around me. And so I've just looked that up to listen to your inner voice. Some people might call it the voice of God or inner wisdom. And I'm glad that I was able to do that day and throughout that year and beyond.
I believe that everyone is born with an assignment. All of us are born with an assignment. And we need to soon ask, what our assignment is. I was where I was supposed to be, doing what I was supposed to do, with the people with whom I was supposed to be. And that's a theme in my life. As an adult, I've never lived anywhere that I didn't understand I was supposed to be. God always lets me know where I'm supposed to be, so whatever good, bad, or in the middle happens, happens, because I'm in place. And I'm grateful that I heard where I was supposed to be. And I'm grateful that there were so many others who heard where they were supposed to be and were there with me or wherever else they decided to be. It was very important that as the plan for that day, the plans fell out, you could engage at whatever level you felt most comfortable or compelled to engage. And that's important. It's important for a community to understand that we don't all have to do the same thing to be effective. We can do what we can do, and that's important. Do what you can do, not what you think I should do, and I can't expect you to do what I've decided to do. Do what you can do what we can do, and we will find that we have done it exceptionally well.
My final word would be summed up in the words of a song that says, if I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with the word of song, if I can show somebody they're traveling wrong, then my living has not been in vain.
How do I follow up on that? Yes, thank you. I think my final word is just, I've come to realize, even as an immigrant from Hong Kong coming to the United States, there's just so much in terms of, I was just saying kind of white supremacy or this kind of inner independence, self-sufficiency, kind of those values have been so ingrained. And my experience on August 12th and since, right, is that I need you. I need you, Alvin. I need you, Brenda. I need you, Anne-Marie. I need you, Carol, David, Liz, Sharon, Susan, so many others. Because I cannot live without community. And it's together that we can then make a change. So, thank you. All right, I'm going to switch my hat. Open it up for questions, and we have a gentleman here that's kind enough to have a microphone. Please put the microphone close to your mouth so that everybody can hear. Thank you.
Hi there, thank you very much. Could you say a little something about the genesis and impact of the evening, the August 11th evening?
Yeah, so the genesis and impact of the August 11th worship gathering at St. Paul Episcopal Church. Yeah. So just briefly to say, many thanks to the organizers at Congregate Seville for bringing that together for this national call to action of faith leaders from all over the country. And it was one of the most powerful services and experiences that I ever had. Seeing that sanctuary packed and then hearing the words from Sharon Harper, from Cornel West, from so many others. So
it was very biblical. We had a mountaintop experience, and after every mountaintop experience comes what?
Down to the valley.
Yeah. I thought that when we were there, and I'm going, wow, this is just too good. It's too good. And I remember coming out after we got out of lockdown, and I was sitting on that wall, was that the Bank of America? And I'm going, and all of a sudden I kept hearing this cacophony of sound. I'm going, what the heck? And then I looked up the road and I went, oh God, they're there. And I said, so I was making a bargain with God. I said, now look, you know I can't run. If I'm here and they come down here, I'm liable to be killed because I'm blackity black. I'm going to need your help. Fix it somehow. And they didn't come as far as I was. They turned toward the rotunda, and I went, phew, thank you.
I was at St. Paul's that night, and I will just say that personally, I think that myself and others were so focused on August 12th that got in the way of responding as was called for and needed on August 11th. So that night, I think it was a surprise. And there was a lot of emotion and fear and all angst tied up in that service and getting ready for the 12th. But I have deep regret that we weren't able to respond in the moment to that, and that we, maybe I should say left students and other people without the support and aid that they needed that night, that terrifying night. So I have deep regret for that.
It was a really confusing, anxious moment. Yeah, so like toward the end of the worship service, the organizer said, okay, we were going to end, we were going to leave, front door, and it says, no, you cannot leave front door now because we are seeing hundreds of people with with tiki torches coming down the street. And so that, I think that just surprised all of us and also the organizers. And so it was, I think the first initial reaction was to protect those who were inside. And we did not kind of broaden our consciousness in terms of, so who among us can also provide protection for the students? And at that point it was all dark too, so we didn't even know like who were actually there at the statue, or were there even students and so forth. So it was just such a chaotic time. So I think looking back with hindsight, yeah, like Anne-Marie was saying, I think people rightly could have criticized us in terms of like closing the doors instead of finding a way to open it and allowing students to find sanctuary at St. Paul's. We just didn't know. And I was just like, okay, so, like, what's happening? It was kind of like my initial thought.
Have you ever been in lockdown? When you're in lockdown, you're really in lockdown. We couldn't have got out of that building if we had wanted to. We didn't know quite what was going on outside, but we were locked down until we weren't locked down. And so the world stopped. There was this bubble that we were in. And when we finally got out, again, doing what you can do, I was with an African-American man who was boiling mad. He was going to go up to where those guys were and confront them. And my task became to save this brother's life, because if he had gone up there, he would have died. And we had to talk him down. You're not going. But no, you are not going. Everybody has to do what they have to do where they are. I don't have any shame about what I did or didn't do in that time, because I did what I knew to do, what I could do. And my job then, because I'm not a puzzle person. I'm not going to put a 1,000-piece puzzle together ever. I do not care. If you like them, that's good. What I'm going to do is put it together enough to see what it is. And once I know what it is, next. I leave the puzzles to you who like those things. It drives me insane. And I kind of live my life that way. What needs to be done? What can I do of what needs to be done? And my job became, in those moments after I got out of lockdown, was to save this brother's life, because he was surely going to die if he followed his gut and gone up to confront the tiki torches.
Yep. Thank you. Question in the back?
It's not a question. I'd like to publicly thank the Charlottesville Clergy Collective for creating a safe space on August 12th at United First Methodist. I showed up as a counter-protester on the 12th and alone, and found myself at the epicenter of the car attack. It was not an accident, it was an attack. And medics picked me up off the street as I was weeping, and brought me to that very safe space where not only was there first aid available, but there were trauma counselors available. And I met a trauma counselor there that worked with me for years so that I could be at a place like this today. And a year later, when we held James Fields accountable for that attack, the witnesses at his trial were also taken down to that very same safe space that I had never been in before that August 12th. And spending 6 hours waiting for the jury to come back, it meant a great deal to me to be in that space where I had been on that day. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And, thanks to Congregate Evil for kind of organizing all of that too, and Reverend Phil Woodson and the staff at First United Methodist Church for, I mean, they lived out the United Methodist logo. I mean, the mantra, right? Like open heart, open arms, open doors. That's exactly what they did. Yes.
No. In her opening chapter of her book, Cast, Isabel Wilkerson describes how throughout history, white Christians have frequently, her words, used a self-interested interpretation of the Bible to justify appalling behavior. And I'm just curious as to what emotions you feel when you see scripture that has shaped you and motivated you to do good being co-opted and used to justify evil.
Burns my butt. Drives me insane. We have so much work to do that when we use sacred scripture for such horrific behavior and to forward such a false narrative. People are, in Florida, I won't even call his name, has declared that CRT is anathema. The Southern Baptist Convention declared, without asking its black and brown members anything, that critical race theory is against Christianity. Are you insane? It's just history. Correct it. I say this all the time. I'm getting ready to get on my bad box, y'all. Thank you for the question. If you tell history without my side of the story, you are lying. If I tell history without your side of the story, I am lying. We are all, you can't tell the story. We can't curate a narrative, which is what has happened, without telling everybody's side, without giving space for that. We've got to learn the simplest things of how to be good to each other, how to tell the truth. What's your story? What's my story? What's their story? In this country, we talk about races, though we're only talking about black and white people. We leave out red people, yellow people, green people, purple people. All people are people. Tell the story right. Include everybody. Everybody. Because that's what we are duty bound to do. And unless we learn how to tell the truth, we're going to die in infamy. That's all for now.
Amen. I also want to say, yes, you can donate to the Virginia Festival book, but there's going to be ushers coming down with offering plates after the sermon. So anyway, there is a question back there. Yes.
Thank you. I actually have two questions, and one sets up the other. In the last 5 or 6 months, there have been a flood of books which basically written by evangelicals attacking Christian nationalism. The most powerful is probably The Kingdom, the Power, and the Glory, but there's also the Great De-Churching, which shows that 40 million Americans in less than my lifetime have quit being religious. That 70% of kids who grew up in evangelical churches are gone by the time they're 24.
Yeah.
Because they see the hypocrisy that you all are referring to. So, and there's several, there's one out just today, the ex-evangelicals, literally published yesterday.
Sure.
Has Christian nationalism reached a peak and we're recognizing that they have, as Russell Moore, who used to be the ethicist for the Southern Baptist Convention, he said, we have become those that Christ warned us against. So I'm wondering, has that peaked, or have Christians, are Christians becoming Christian again?
So I'm not a historian, nor do I play one, but so I don't have the definitive answer whether it has peaked, but it is certainly, trending, right? And it is, I think, from my perspective, it comes from a deep anxiety on a part of certain evangelicals as they come to recognize that their position in society and their power is waning. And they want to do everything that they can to hold on to that power. I'll stop it.
But you've answered your own question. Yeah. The more people gain their voice and say, no, this is my story, it's not what you told, this is how it is. The more that happens, the more evangelicals are debunked. They're shown to be lying. They're shown not even to be religious. And remember, Virginia is where the one-drop rule began. You know what the one-drop rule is? If you have one drop of black blood, you are no longer white. Now, as a brown girl, I'm good. No matter what happens, I'm good. White folks have, in fact, defined themselves into extinction, if that's your definition. And y'all did it. We didn't do that. Y'all did that. And it works out for me, but it could work out for you, too. Do you hear what I'm saying? There's a critical mass that's happening all around us on so many fronts. The opposite of love is not hate, it is fear. And what we have and what Donald Trump appeals to, he didn't create it, he's just using it like a wily greasy fox he is. There's a group of people in this country who are afraid of a reality where they can't claim supremacy. And they will do anything. In fact, they will even attempt to burn the country to the ground so that they will not have to face a new reality. When I see groups of people like us in Charlottesville 2017 able to come together, past our differences, past the chasms that sometimes divide us, when I see that happen, I know that the lie of white supremacy is in fact being seen for what it is. There's hope in the world. We can do something besides go, oh, poor me. No, get up and do what you can do. I'll get up and do what I can do. And then we'll see. We'll see. The world can live and become a better place. The kingdom of God is at hand. I don't care what lies people tell. The kingdom of God is at hand, and it's in your hands, and it's in my hands. We have it. We have it. We're going to win.
Another question, thank you.
Okay, while I was sitting here, I was listening to each of you tell your story. Like she was saying, we have learned to tell the truth. Because I was here on August the 12th at that rally, and everybody was so uptight, tense, and everything. But we can't just go on. We need to stand together, as you said, we need to stand together. So are we ready to stand together or stand up to hate? So are we going to sit back and it just happen again? So how do we come together as one person or one people? Like you said, black, white, orange, green, whatever. We are one person. So we need to stand up. So how can we come together to make this a reality, to make this not happen again?
Vote!
Yeah, that's a good one-word answer. If I may also answer you too, sir. I think part of what I've been learning as part of kind of this community and so forth is at least 5 different things. Just reading and having teachers like Brenda and Alvin and others, right, has kind of like awakened me in terms of opening my eyes to see things that I have not been able to see, right? So if all of us can begin the inner work journey of awakening ourselves, also then acquainting ourselves with one another, living life, and because without that, right, that proximity,
Yes.
We don't get to really deeply and thickly understand the other, so to speak. And then if we can move beyond that to allyship, how can we leverage what we have to give, our power, our privilege, and stand alongside and support those who are marginalized within the system, then advocate. We may need to critique the system for the benefit of others. And then finally, be an activist. Because there will be instances where we will need to change the system, right? And so each step of the way, but not doing it individually, but with others. And in this particular instance, I'm going to follow Black leadership.
This is for Reverend Grooms, and this is a reflective hindsight comment, but I was honored to be at the funeral services for former Councilwoman Holly Edwards, mayor, and I remember that January 2017 that you delivered the eulogy there, the most passionate eulogy that I've ever witnessed, and your theme was beautiful, ugly Charlottesville. And I had never heard that term quite in that way. But after August of 2017, I looked back at that, which again was just the most passionate, different, perhaps maybe even unsettling eulogy that I had heard and seen. But actually it was a prophetic word, because 7 months later, we actually saw beautiful, ugly Charlottesville that we're trying to correct. And I just think it was a time that God was telling the community that what they didn't know would happen in 7 months. But he did put it in you that day to share it. And you did it. You were at the right place at the right time.
Thank you. We probably have like one more question, one or two. Yeah, so final zinger.
I was thinking the point you brought up earlier about what is our assignment, what is my assignment, is how we put it. So the question I have is, what is our assignment today? I've been concerned that when right-wing leaders, not the soldiers who were put in jail, but when they look at Charlottesville, they think, well, that worked. We created chaos for years after that. And yes, we've come together in many, many ways, but January, we were just a practice exercise for January the 6th. What is November the 6th going to look like this year? So the question I raised is for all of us, how do we get the word out on what Charlottesville actually meant and what we have learned to the wider audience? Americans need to know this story, but I don't think Americans know this story now. They more know about what Donald Trump said about Charlottesville than about what really happened. So I think it's a question for all of us to ponder is what now? What's our job now?
Thank you, Graham, for that question. Yeah. And if there's any response from you all, but that question can be, what now? What can we do now? How can we tell the story of Charlottesville to counteract the narratives that are out there? I think those are questions that each one of us are invited to wrestle with, intend to answer in our own unique ways.
Yeah, we have to correct the narrative. We have to correct the narrative. There's so much disinformation. Whatever you're doing now, broaden it so that you and I are correcting disinformation. Tell your story. That's all we really have. My superpower is that I'm always myself. That's anybody's superpower if you'll embrace it. I'm always myself. Don't know how to be anybody else. Can't be anybody else. I'm just going to be me. And I invite you to just be you because you can't be anybody else. And as you're being yourself, tell the truth as you see it. Because that's what's wrong. People are being inauthentic. We're not telling the truth. We're a nation built on lies. And what counters lies is the truth. It's the truth.
And as always, I give Brenda the last word. Thank you so much for being here. And please fill out the evaluation form. Before you go, we will be in that room to sign books. There will also be books available for purchase, passed through the hallway over here. But from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for your attendance and participation.